Hi everyone, welcome to Art with Mrs. Miller, art lessons for all ages. In this lesson, you're going to learn how to create 3 different digital value scales using different tools in a Sketchbook app. So the first thing you're going to need to do is make sure that you can see all of your drawing space. You can zoom in and out. You're going to select the shape tool at the top and select the rectangle tool because we're going to be drawing a rectangle. We're not going to be drawing a long rectangle, but a tall, short rectangle instead. In fact, we're going to draw 9 of them. So once you've drawn your first rectangle, you can kind of draw out each individual rectangle as best as you can, keeping them the same size. Or you can draw one large, long rectangle and then using the line tool, add in all of the individual lines for each of your sections. So when we make a value scale, you need to have the scale of the different shades. So value is the lightness and darkness of your image. So we are going to be drawing how the dark values transition and change into the light values. Be careful when you draw in your sections that the sections are completely closed and connected. Otherwise, you're not going to have that full shape. They're okay if they overlap, but just make sure that they're fully connected and there's no gaps. So the next thing I'm going to do on my screen is I'm just going to move my value scales a little further apart so that way I have some space in between. And then I'm going to align it in the center of my drawing space. After that, what we're going to do is I'm going to label my first value scale and my second value scale so that way I don't get confused over which value scale that I'm working with. So I'm going to start off with my first value scale, and this one here, you can't see it on my screen. I didn't know that my little windows were not showing, but you need to have your color window open so that way you can use your black, grays, and white colors from your color window. So here I have my little color puck, and as you can see, I'm kind of just adjusting my drawing space into the center of my screen. Remember, you're using the whites, the grays, and the blacks on your color window. I don't have it, it doesn't show it, I don't know why, but we're going to be using the fill tool that's at the top. Don't select the gradient tool where it shows you the values from light to dark in one spot. You want it to have a solid fill. Okay, so I started with black, and a cool thing about this Sketchbook app, this Pro, is that inside this little puck, if I click inside the puck and drag up, it will start to lighten the color. It will lighten it for me. So that's what I'm doing. So each little section, I am creating a lighter gray and adding that gray into the section to the right. So we can actually see how it gradually changes from black to white. So now that we've filled in all of our sections, you can actually see how the values darken or lighten from left to right by each section. The second value scale that we have here is going to be for you to create on your own. So you're going to use your own brush tool from the tool window, the brush window, and you're going to duplicate the values that are above it. And so here I've kind of taken the color that I used last, or the value that I used last, and I'm coloring it in on my own. Now here's where it gets tricky, because you cannot see my window on my screen. I'm showing you that this value that I'm using is not the same, and it's going to be tricky for me to try to drag and create and find that exact value that I used. If you look at your color window, there is like this little Doppler button, and if you click on that Doppler button, it will give you, if you can see it, it's going really fast, the little Doppler option. And when you click on a value or a color on your screen, it actually copies that color for you, so that way you don't have to try and guess if it's the right shade or not. Okay, The next thing I'm doing is I'm taking one of my blending tools, my blending brushes, and I'm just blending the edges of my value scale so that way each of those little value scale pieces kind of smoothly transition. It's a little difficult on my screen because I was using my mouse. So if you're using your mouse or if you're using your little touchpad with your finger, it's going to be a little choppy, a little difficult. It's better off to try and use it with your finger on your screen or with a stylus pen. Okay, but as you can see, it kind of blends in and it smudges it. Mine's really messy. Try not to get too messy, but you want it to be nice and smooth, transitioning from darkest color to lightest color. And of course, once you have all of your little edges blended out, smoothed out, you have your 2 value scales. Remember, we're making 3. So I'm going to adjust my value scales up towards the top so that way I have space for my 3rd one. And just like the first 2, I'm going to use the shape tool at the top and select the rectangle shape, and I'm going to draw out my value scale using the shape and the lines. I find it easier to draw the long shape first, the long rectangle first, and then add in the lines inside of it. But again, just make sure that you do your best to make sure that they're nice and neat and they're not all like angly and wiggly. Try to keep them nice and straight and even. Okay, so now what you're going to do is, again, you're going to duplicate the value scales that you have above, but this time you're going to use your own selected or whichever tool brush you prefer. Try to stick to one of the texture ones so that way it kind of gives you a different type of brush stroke, and you're going to duplicate it on your own. Okay, this is the one that's going to get tricky because you have to try to create those values on your own, and you're doing your best to try to match the values that you have above. Okay, so I had a really hard time when I got to those really light grays. I ended up having to go in and change the value of my paintbrush so that way I had gray instead of black. So be careful, experiment a little bit to see what works best for you, but try not to change every single value for every single section. Try to do it as if you were drawing it on paper and all you had was a pencil. Okay, and then I just cleaned up my edges, and there you go. That is your 3 value scales using 3 different tools in the Sketchbook app. Okay, I do have the Sketchbook Pro app, so mine looks a little bit different, but please make sure that you do save your work. Always make sure if you have the free version that you are using the export button and not the save button. This lesson was created for my 7th and 8th grade digital media class. Feel free to subscribe to my channel for more art lessons, and of course, if you liked this video, go ahead and like it. Thanks for watching!